Hi, I'm Mark from eReplacementParts.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the ignition module on a Ryobi handheld gas blower. All of the parts used in this video and many more can be found on our website at eReplacementParts.com. Let's get started. We'll begin by removing the blower tube. It just simply turns and then pulls away from the blower. Next, we'll remove the side housing on the blower. It's a little easier to remove the side housing if we also remove this base extension. Now we can go ahead and remove the side housing. Now we have access to the fan, and we'll remove it next. The fan is held in place with this nut. The problem is when we try to turn the nut, we just turn the fan and the motor shaft. So to remove this, what we'll do is remove the spark plug and then bind up the cylinder with a short piece of starter rope. And now just thread the starter rope down into the cylinder. The rope just fills the space between the top of the piston and the top of the cylinder, so the piston can no longer move up and down. Now I can remove the nut and the fan. Now we'll turn our attention to the other side of the blower. Here I'll remove the air filter cover and the side cover. Next, I'm going to remove the throttle cable from the carburetor. Now I'll go ahead and remove the other half of the housing from the engine assembly. Now we have access to the ignition coil. I'll start removing the ignition coil by removing the wires. There's one more screw securing the ignition coil to the engine. I'll remove that. Now we can install our new ignition coil. You'll notice there's a couple of magnets on the flywheel. I need to line up those magnets with the base of the ignition coil. I'll set it in place and install the first screw. This is the one that didn't have the wire attached to it. At this point, I'm not going to attach the ignition coil firmly. I'll just leave the screws loose. Now I'll install our second screw through the eyelet on the ignition wire and back down through the ignition module and into the engine. And again, I want to leave this screw loose. Now I need to set the gap or the distance between the ignition module and the magnets on the flywheel. To do that, I'll use an ignition gapping tool. Basically, this is a piece of plastic that's 14 thousandths of an inch thick. If you don't have one of these tools, you can usually get away with using one thick business card or a couple of thinner ones. I'll just pull the coil away from the magnets on the flywheel and insert the gauge between them. And now I'll tighten up the screws. And now I'll reinstall that last ignition wire. Now we'll begin reassembly. First I'll slide the washer back over the motor shaft. Now I can align the housing over the motor shaft. Now I'll secure the housing to the engine with the screws. I'll slide the spacer tube back over the engine shaft. Now I'll reinstall the motor housing. Now I'll go ahead and reinstall the throttle cable. Now I'll reinstall the air filter cover. I'll place the gasket and then align and secure the cover. First, I'll place one of the large washers beneath the impeller, then the impeller back onto the shaft, followed by the second large washer and the nut. And I'll secure the nut with a ratchet wrench. And now we can pull the rope from the cylinder. And I'll go ahead and replace the spark plug. Now I'll reinstall the fan housing. Now I'll slide the base extension back into the housing and secure it with the screws. And we'll finish up by reinstalling the blower tube. And now you know how to replace the ignition module on a Ryobi handheld gas blower. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up and leave a comment.